Okay, so it's a privilege to be sitting right now with our esteemed guest speakers. And of course, as we've seen and as we've heard earlier today, we knew that for the Philippines, we're aligning all of our interventions and initiatives on climate change and man-made and other natural disasters. So this is a very timely issue, considering that just yesterday, um, the Philippines was hit by another earthquake. And earlier, we also heard that our speakers emphasized what they think are the most vulnerable sectors, considering the situation that they are in right now. And at the same time, how are we addressing these vulnerabilities through different efforts coming from different stakeholders? So before I open the floor for questions, allow me first to ask our speakers a question about, first, what do they think is the key factor why these sectors, particularly women, children, and youth, are becoming highly vulnerable to climate change and disaster risks? So that would be my first question. In your opinion, what do you think makes them highly vulnerable? So anyone from our panel?
I'll go first then, should I?
Okay, Rina.
So the question is, what makes women, children, and youth vulnerable? I will probably go in terms of, it's our infrastructure. So the way that our cities, barangays, shelters, coastal communities are built, we really have to look at the way we build things. Local government units right now are trying to address this. So for example, if there's houses built by the coast, that's susceptible and vulnerable alone to storm surges. So be assured that as part of our mandate as the Climate Change Commission, we are working with all national government agencies, civil society organizations, NGOs, to try and address the way that we live. And that's why we said it's a lifestyle change. How are we living? Our houses, our livelihoods, saan siya nakaposisyon? Is it near the storm surge? Binabaha ba dyan? Dyan ba is that where, even mountains, dyan ba magkakaroon ng landslide? So again, we're trying to work with scientists also to address this issue. Speaking of like things like they're working on these things called hazard maps, so probabilistic maps. So we need to look at how we live. Saan nakalagay yung evacuation center? Where are our water wells? So what makes it vulnerable is the way that we have built our infrastructure, our homes, our offices. So that's what we need to reconsider. And until that changes, paulit na mangyayari ito, hanggat hindi natin baguhin, paano tayo titira? Paano tayo maghahanap buhay?
So parang in technical terms po, no, there is this exposure, element of exposure, and at the same time sensitivity because of the way we build or construct our infrastructure right now. So other inputs? Dong?
To add to what she said, I'll talk about the youth sector, the young ones. Bukod sa malaki ang populasyon ng kabataan, it comprises 30% of our population right now. They are exposed to vulnerability because madalas sila ang nasa frontline ng disasters. Bakit? Dahil madalas hindi sila nakakasama sa proseso of planning, hindi sila nakakasama sa proseso of implementing. Yes, we provide them with the basics, but imagine, what if we include them in the process? What if we empower them more, put them in the NDRMC, put them in the provincial disaster risk and management councils? What if we get their inputs? Mas maiintindihan natin, mas mauunawaan natin ang kanilang mga issues. Because I believe that aside from being just volunteers, the youth sector can do so much more. We just really need to empower them.
Thank you. And I think that's a good entry point for Commissioner Paul.
Our disaster reduction policy kasi is different from our adult policies. So of course we have the teenage sectors, we have our students. So I think we need to focus on the youth sector talaga kasi of course youth is our future generations. And talagang malaki yung maaambag nila sa ating disaster risk reduction kasi sila nga yung pinaka-energetic, sila yung may energy to drive mga ganitong initiatives.
And if we're not mistaken, the National Youth Commission po has been doing a considerable work in terms of mainstreaming youth concerns po on climate change and national disaster risk reduction and management issue. Now, we talk about the youth, we go to our younger generation, to the children.
Thank you, Pebbles. Yeah, I would like to go back to what Mr. Dantes just said. I think it's very important that children and youth many times are not being consulted and properly included in decision-taking processes. And I think that's a key issue why our children are more vulnerable, because their specific needs and vulnerabilities many times go unnoticed because they are not really given the voice to express the risks that only them can perceive. So it's really important to give them a voice. And also going back to why children are more are specifically vulnerable to climate change, I think it's important the exposure fact that Rina was mentioning before. So we have a very high number of children living in the most affected areas, in small islands, in urban poor communities that suffer the effects the most. So obviously, in terms of number, they're a bigger chunk of the population, and then they're suffering many health impacts in already because of air pollution and other diseases that are increasing with climate change. So those are needs that are, those are hazards and risks that are urgent and that needs to start being addressed already today.
Yes, so what we're getting is there's a need to provide a platform for these sectors so that their voices can be heard as well. And is that the same with other sectors?
Well, so I think it's very important to include everyone in the conversation, but on a certain level, an individual can only say or do so much. I think policies have to be in place and enforced, so regional zoning, proper management of developments, so both private and public sector, the people who are building community developments or infrastructure in certain areas need to know, is this a geohazard? Is this in a floodplain? Is this going to be hit over and over again? And should we or should we not build here? Regardless of what the private interests and profitability might be, we need to start thinking about development in terms of lives. So taking a kind of step back and saying, should we even be in this place to begin with? Or should we allow reconstruction in certain areas when we know that the vulnerability factor will be there, ever present and increasingly?
So as what we're getting right now, information is really key when we want to secure the safety and, of course, the adaptive capacity of our communities and of these different sectors. Now, I would like to open the floor for questions from our participants.
Yeah.
So, kung
Yeah.
meron pong gustong magtanong,
Yeah, I'll be joining
Voltaire
you
will
from
be
the
helping us.
audience. After all, women, children, and youth, their sectors cut across other
Yes.
sectors. So maybe we can hear from other sectors. I've heard someone coming from the farmer sector. Kanina? Saan nagsalita kanina from the farmer sector or a group that is involved in agriculture?
yes, if we can see a show of hands po.
Or from the local government units?
At
There,
the back.
At the back. Meron ba? Takitakbuhin natin. Magpakilala lang po tayo para ma-recognize at kung anong organization at kung ano po yung tanong natin.
Good afternoon na. Malapit na mag-lunch. I'm Arlon Hison from City Government of Antipolo. I work at City Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office. And thank you to give us an opportunity na maka-attend at in-invite nyo. Thank you. Pero sana, please, narinig ko lahat nung sinabi na pero meron ng kulang. Ano po yung kulang? Parang nililigtas natin yung bata, yung babae, ini-empowered natin yung mga organization, pero hindi natin nadi-discuss, baka nani-neglect, o baka may isa pa tayong speaker, hindi ko alam. Regarding sa PWD at senior citizen. Yun po. Yun lang po. Maraming salamat.
Maganda na bring up nyo yan dahil definitely yung mga persons with disability at saka yung ating mga elderly ay bahagi definitely ng ating discussions.
Yes.
Mayroong gustong magdagdag from the panel? Or from any other sectors
Yes.
dito na represented,
Are there
organizations?
also representatives from the IT
Yeah.
sector that they're
Yeah.
also very vulnerable to climate change?
The indigenous peoples.
Yes. So kung meron pa pong sector
Okay,
na gustong
there's someone
magbahagi.
from the audience.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Becky Torres, retired from the Housing and Land Use Regulatory Board. I am an environmental planner, and I would like to express my eyes just to agree with Mr. Baclaran. I think what he said is a very important aspect of disaster preparedness, which is long-range planning, and which has been neglected and not really focused upon, because this is where we should be coming from. No, I think we are aware of national plans. We have the National Physical Framework Plan, the Regional Framework Plan, the Provincial Physical Framework Plan, and at the local level, the bottom are the comprehensive land use plans and development plans. Together, these are supposed to be the basis for what we prepare on a long-term, medium, and immediate preparedness. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Okay.
ma'am. Maybe
Yeah.
we will ask a reaction from our panel speakers.
Sir, okay, tama ka na hindi pa napag-usapan iba-ibang labels, right? Ibang terms. What I'd like to offer everyone, at the end of the day, yung environment, yung bagyo, the disasters, it doesn't see labels. It doesn't see women, man, rich, poor, educated, PWD. So these are terms that we use. But really, when we say women, siguro naman dapat lahat kasama yun, right? People with disabilities, or they're women, they're men, they're children, right? Special needs, sure. Specific labels, IP-specific labels. And what ma'am was saying is true. Kailangan talaga natin pag-isipan how we have to live different, better. When we say resilient in the Climate Change Commission, it's not about survival. It has to be, ang tawag namin, better than business as usual. Hindi resilient as in we recovered and then we go back to how it was. We recover and we learn better and we prepare right now and we build, not rebuild, pero build according to land use plan. Saan ba talaga yung baha? According to disaster vulnerabilities, when we're trying to do a school for, say, people with disabilities, or if we were doing entrepreneurial ecotourism involving our indigenous groups, pinag-iisipan ba, what's the climate change lens here? So that's what we're also trying to work with everyone. And you can imagine it's a big task working with different groups to always ask, how is this relating to our environment? How is this relating to the weather, the patterns of the climate change? Whatever we're doing, schools, building schools for the youth, building new houses. So we work with Gawad Kalinga. Consistently, lahat ng kailangan natin, we always have to think, how does this, what's the climate change factor that I have to take into consideration when building a school, when building a program for PWD, for anything? Kailangan talaga pag-isipan, paano nga tayo titira in this modern world, 21st century na tayo. We have to be better. And then, kailangan din sama-sama at mag-exchange ng ideas how things can be better.
Rina Pebbles, maybe we can
Yes.
have a quick scan of the audience kung mayroong mga organizations dito that cater to the needs of the special sectors. Okay, someone is raising her hand. Is it related? Yeah, okay. And then we move on to the next question, Pebbles now.
Good afternoon to everyone. Tatayo ba? Sorry. I'm Yeng Nadwa from Catholic Relief Services. So maganda po yung napunto nyo kanina, different sectors. So sinasabi nyo kanina, ma'am, may iba-ibang may lenses. So when we see bakit natin pinag-uusapan per sector, kasi iba-ibang, although pag nagka-disaster, lahat apektado, walang mayaman, walang mahirap, walang bata, matanda. Pero when you do the lens, di ba, you are looking at the lens of rights-based dapat. So women's rights, children's rights, saka yung mga lahat ng vulnerable sector. Kasi every sector, not labels, every sector needs ay magkakaiba. Tama po ba? Diba po? So that's why sa climate change, hindi po dapat lahat na mabaliwala, especially pag PWD, senior citizen, iba't ibang platform yung ginagamit, iba't ibang lente ang ginagamit for response, planning. That's why it is important kung meron ditong mga barangay officials, it is important to include in your BDRM plans yung mga sectors po na yon para lahat yun ay na-address.
Thank you for your insight.
Yes, thank you for the input. No? So what we're getting from this session is that climate change and disaster really cut across different sectors. And of course, collaboration and partnership are really key for us to address this issue. Now, let's open again the floor to another question, ma'am. Walter, over here in front.
Okay. Ayan, merong malapit na microphone doon, ma'am.
I'm Ana Marie Fresnelli, and I own an NGO. Last June 8th was the World Ocean Day. And a friend of mine, a videographer by the name of Ana Barona, and her friend exhibited an underworld photo exhibit at Soler. It's still there until the end of this, until August 7th. So I invite everybody to go there and see the underworld, the marine, the blue ocean. I would like to point out that that exhibit was done because they are protecting the marine protected areas. This is what we call MPA. This is the Tubataha, the Cagayan Silio, the one in Palawan, in Anido. And we are trying to propagate our advocacy for protecting our ocean, protecting our corals, because it is really the corals, the ocean, that gives us oxygen. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing that. It's another source of inspiration for every one of us. Since we're seeing different sectors coming together and doing something to address climate change. Voltaire, do we have other questions?
Yeah, we have a young one here who would like to ask his question.
Hi, I'm Paulo Sulat from the Ateneo de Manila Senior High School, and all of you guys mentioned this idea of involving everyone in this conversation about DRR. But then again, DRR is such a very heavy topic with some serious technicalities, and it could be very unappealing and very scary for most people who aren't aware. And how can we involve more people in this conversation due to it being such a serious topic? How can we get them more involved, and what incentives can we give? Because despite there being a need for DRR, not everyone wants to learn about DRR due to it being such a serious topic with a lot of technicalities. So how can we make it more appealing for everyone to join in the conversation?
Thank you. So the question was, how do we communicate it? How do we communicate the sense of urgency and at the same time the need to be involved in this situation or in this concern? Yes?
So I've always had a dream of having these major issues incorporated into pop culture, because we're always talking about how Aldab is doing this and that. What if these topics get incorporated into our telenovelas? What if real issues that we deal with are incorporated into the things that people are already watching and talking about anyway? There was a study in Brazil which showed that a telenovela character, a woman who was being domestically abused, stepped up and then got out of that relationship. There is data that studied how people then felt empowered and were able to then save themselves from those situations. So the power of pop culture and media is very, very strong, especially here in the Philippines. So maybe we can kind of open these topics of conversation up onto the platforms that we're familiar with. Your daytime television, your social media platforms, making maybe some of our pop culture influencers more influential for the things that actually matter. And then, of course, there's jobs in the private sector that can create more engagements, and the tourism can be more educational and environmentally friendly. But to me, like looking at a high school kind of scope, I would think, you know, if the media you're already consuming starts to address these issues, you're going to start to perk up and pay attention, because role models on TV can also be role models in real life.
Yes, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I don't want to put you on the spotlight. But Mr. Dantes, can you add more to the inputs po of our speaker from Bambike?
I totally agree with him, and I also agree with you na it is really a challenge, no, kung paano maiparating yung mensahe ng DRR sa lahat ng tao. And siguro ito isang katotohanan na malalaman mo lang yung importansya ng isang bagay kapag mangyari na siya sa'yo. Otherwise, hindi mo fully realize yung importance niya, yung kahalagahan niya, yung kabigatan niya, kung sa iba mo palang nakikita. Pero aantayin pa ba natin mangyari yun? Nakita naman natin yung experiences ng ating mga kababayan. We saw its effects on other people. So, I think it is also our duty and responsibility as citizens to help the government to participate, and not just participate, but meaningfully participate. And like what you said, we have all these platforms. Nandiyan ang television, nandiyan ang social media. So, nandiyan ang ating mga media companies. Ginagamit nila ang lahat ng makakaya nila para maiparating sa lahat ng tao yung kahalagahan ng DRR at climate action. Pero siyempre, it needs our help. Kasi tayo magbibigay ng multiplier effect. Hindi ako, hindi lang ikaw, kundi tayong lahat. But if everyone acts together, mas magiging maganda ang resulta.
Concretely, Ding Dong, I understand you mentioned, and Commissioner mentioned the campaign which was successful, Now PH. Can you concretely give us tips? Maybe our campaigners here and other advocates would like to hear how the campaign became a successful one.
And how we tap the social media to gather Filipino youth in our cause.
You basically, you were able to mobilize 3.6 million. How did you do it? Exactly. Yeah, Ding Dong and the Commissioner.
So in addition to that, for the hashtag NowPH, talagang malaking naging role ng social media dito sa campaign na to. Kasi yun talaga yung nagpalakas ng campaign na yun eh. Kasi alam naman natin lahat may social media, may Facebook. So doon napadali, kasi ang target lang ata nun talaga is 1 million. Pero naging 3 million yung outcome ng signature campaign na yun. So malaking role talaga yung ginagampanan ng social media sa mga ganitong campaign.
Totoo yun eh, kasi when we were campaigning for that, pag pumupunta kami sa isang area, syempre tatanungin nila, ano ba ang climate change? May intindihan ba namin yung science behind that? Napaka-technical. Pero naging challenge para sa amin kung paano maipaliwanag. Kasi ang objective namin was to get their commitment patungo sa Paris Climate Change Conference ng 2015. So talaga it was a struggle for us. But then we were able to raise the signatures through proper educational materials, with the help, of course, of the LGUs, pati na rin sa lahat ng mga volunteers. And to end the point, pwede naman natin gawin ngayon, and ginagawa naman natin ngayon, but the key also is consistency. Hindi naman pwedeng matapos na yan ng isang stage lang. Hindi pwedeng matapos lang yan ng isang season lang. We have to do it repeatedly and influence others in the process.
Thank you. And maybe, yes, Commissioner Paul.
Maybe can I add to the question of the young guy there. Siguro, yung sa NYC kasi, masusurprise ka kung gaano karaming youth volunteers ang nag-volunteer tuwing may relief operations, ganyan. Siguro the power of barkada, the power of group, yung siyempre, ako kasi, pag ako lang mag-isa, parang may hiya ako na mag-volunteer or mag-participate sa mga ganitong initiatives. So, siguro, I suggest, kung kayong mga kabataan, you go in a group, siyempre you have your friends. Siguro kayo mag-usap kayo, ano ba yung maitutulong natin pag may disasters, yung barkada nyo, tara punta tayo sa ganito, baka pwede tayo mag-tulong-tulong or mag-volunteer dito sa isang operations na to. Siguro yun yung masasuggest ko. The power of barkada, the power of group is malaking tulong yun.
Can I
Okay, Javier.
Just to follow up, I think it's a very important question, and it's something that in UNICEF, we also think about how to make DRR, that it's such a sometimes very technical issue, more accessible to children and youth. And actually, UNICEF, in partnership with NYC, has developed a tool called DQuest, which is a learning online tool precisely for doing to address the concern you were mentioning, how to make disaster risk reduction more accessible to children and youth. So this will be soon accessible online. And it's really a good entry point and a really good way to start improving your knowledge about the issue and starting to think about what you can do and how you can get involved.
To support what UNICEF are doing, I think we shouldn't underestimate children. They actually have imaginations that they can come up with solutions. And what UNICEF are trying to do is give a voice. Because I don't know how many parents here want to talk about such issues to your children at such a young age, but we encourage that giving them a voice, give them a say, seeing as it's supposedly their future we're also looking out for. What do they think? Well, what are their opinions about it? And then providing platforms for them, for their solutions to be heard. Because we're getting it now in a lot of Facebook, YouTube videos. Young children are actually smarter than we give them credit for. And they will come up with solutions and ideas and opinions about animals, about the environment. These are the things that they draw in. So we encourage that sector to raise their voices.
Pebbles, before we wrap up, we have one last question from Mayor Mon. Where's Mayor Mon Ilacan? Ayan. And then we wrap up the discussion because we're transitioning to another session this afternoon.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to greet, of course, congratulate Agos and, of course, the Rappler Media for having this very timely and relevant summit on disaster preparedness. No? I would like to share some thoughts because being the former mayor of the municipality of Cainta in Rizal, it was way back in 2009, I remember, when we experienced Ondoy, and it was really, I really felt very helpless with my constituents because 95% of the municipality of Cainta went underwater. So we do not have water, lights, and we do not know really during the time whom to call for. But the real problem was there really is the information. Of course, the cell phone text messages are not working. And it's good now that we have the very fast social media through the Facebook. I think ang isa sa problema rin natin ngayon, especially in LGUs, we have a very limited space as far as the, you call this, yung sa disaster natin, yung ating evacuation center. So there's a very limited space about that. The other one, of course, masyadong matigas ang ulo ng mga constituents natin. Even though we have enough information na malakas ang ulan, malakas ang bagyo, pero ayaw pa rin umalis doon sa kanilang mga bahay. Then the third one, I thought, yung katabi namin kanina from KBP, Kapisanan ng mga Broadcasters sa Pilipinas, siguro maganda magkaroon tayo ng isang parang dedicated o mga radio stations na talagang pinag-uusapan, it's all about the DRR, the Disaster Risk Reduction. Because tama kayo, so many people, and especially among the youth, cannot really understand about the DRR. What is this all about? What is the mitigation all about problem, no? Siguro maganda, may i-discuss ito sa radio station na dedicated talaga and with the social media so that people would know exactly ano ang gagawin nila pagdating ng panganib, no? O pagdating ng disaster. And of course, the local officials and the national officials should also be guided in this aspect. So yun lang, maraming salamat.
Thank you, Mayor Mon. Voltaire, I need to ask if we can entertain more questions.
I think we have to wrap up because we don't have time. But maybe you can give them the floor
so at this
to give the
point,
parting shots.
parang we're really getting that information is key and we have to provide a platform for all these voices and for us to communicate climate change and disaster risk reduction and management through different means like pop culture and social media, of course. Now, at this point, we'd like to hear like a final message from our, closing message from our speakers who have been very generous in sharing their experiences and knowledge today. So, who goes first?
I can go.
Thank you.
So, Sir Mayor, to comment on your notes, I think it's very important, the matter of education and how do we make sure that people are prepared, especially the more vulnerable communities. And I think actually working with CHED and with the Department of Education and incorporating these types of procedures and kind of making our youth more aware of what sustainability is, what risks we all face, For example, Enderun Colleges now has the first ever sustainability management program, and we're looking at trying to influence and trickle down this type of information about what are the sustainable development goals, how do they apply to our lives, and how can these issues of disaster risk reduction be made relevant to me in my home, in my school. So maybe using education as a platform can be a very powerful way to reach all of the sectors that we're trying to reach, and then hopefully those children grow up and become the leaders that make sure that we are more secure for the future.
Thank you very much.
Again, I'd like to enforce na tungkol sa climate change, kasi lagi natin sinasabi, climate change, disasters, it's really lifestyle change. Ika nga ni ang ating national artist, Joey Ayala, hindi naman talaga climate change, primate change. Yung pag-iisip, yung attitude at behavior. And one of the sectors who's not here then, I think was brought out with the comments, arts. So yung radyo, ano pong ginagawa ng ating mga musicians, artists, mga rappers, mga graffiti artists, lahat ng mga ibang sector niyan, ano talaga ang sinasabi natin sa our way of life? How can we improve those? So it's really what we say, maybe we should shift from climate change is mindset change, is lifestyle change, belief change.
Thank you, Rina. Commissioner Paul?
Siguro to my fellow young people here, always believe that you can always contribute, whether it is big or small. Kasi alam natin na kung ano man yung mga contribute natin, makakaroon to ng impact sa ating society, sa disaster, sa climate change. And yun sana, wag natin kakalimutan yun.
Again, our best resource is our human resource, lalong-lalo na yung ating kabataan. Information is very, very powerful. So let's empower them. And as we all know, it affects us all. Tama sinabi mo, walang iniiwan yan. Pero let's do it, one sector at a time, sabay-sabay, at lahat tayo nagtutulungan.
Thank you. And Javier, of course.
I guess what I would like to emphasize now is how important it is for finding solutions to climate change, to do it in an integrated and coordinated manner, because it's, as we've seen, it's affecting different sectors, children, women, persons with disability, etc. But it's also affecting health, education, water and sanitation, nutrition. So it's really key to have all actors coordinated. So it's great to see here the private sector, government agencies, international organizations, civil society organizations. So it's really key that we all make a common effort to find good solutions for this pressing issue that affects us all, particularly children, since they're the ones who will be living in the next decades and suffering the biggest impacts.
Again, maraming salamat po sa ating mga speakers. And of course, maraming salamat po sa lahat ng mga nag-participate, sa lahat ng mga nagtanong at nag-share po ng kanilang mga experiences.